Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Let's make a start to today's session. So a big welcome to today's webinar. This is actually the first webinar in a new monthly product webinar series where we are going to explore Avallain Author and Avallain Magnet. And today's session is titled From Content Creation to Learning Delivery, a seamlessly integrated edtech ecosystem for the age of AI. And in today's webinar, I'm going to be your moderator. My name is Jada, and I'm Senior Marketing and Sales Operation Manager. And with me today, we have two of my colleagues, David Maxon, Learning Technology Specialist and Content Developer, and Stephen Madden, Senior Business Development Manager. So thank you both for being here today. And this is what we're going to cover today in this 30-minute session. We'll do a quick intro to Avallain. We'll cover the importance of a seamlessly integrated edtech ecosystem, how to create smarter content with Avallain Author, and also the transition from Avallain Author to Avallain Magnet. And at the end, there will be a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout the session, just feel free to drop them in the chat that you can find here below. And we'll aim to address them as many as possible towards the end. Also note that the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you via email that we will be sending next week. And with that, I think we can make a start because we have a lot to cover. So I'm just going to stop sharing and that's over to you, Stephen, to begin today's session. Thank you very much once again, all.
Thank you very much, Jada, and thank you very much to all of you who are joining us today live. It's nice to see some familiar faces, familiar names on the chat there, and lovely to have those of you who are joining us live, but also hello to all of those who are watching back on the recording, as Jada mentioned, which will be sent out. I know it's not always possible for everyone to join live, given time zones and other commitments. My name is Stephen. I am a business development manager at Avallain. I've worked in education for over 16 years. I've worked as a teacher. I've worked in publishing, and now I'm working with Avallain in the area of educational technology. We have a pretty full agenda for today. As Jada mentioned, this is the first in a series of monthly webinars that we'll be running. So we'll have lots of time as the weeks go by to go into topics in more and more detail. But today we're going to give a general overview and go into a little bit of detail on a few of the important elements. Taking a little bit of a step back first and letting you know about Avallain and who we are. Avallain is a Swiss edtech company that has been around since 2002, so coming close to its 25-year to its silver anniversary, be coming up next year. And although based in Switzerland, is a very international organization, a well-established European development team, and has people working from all over the world in, at the latest count, more than 14 countries from around the world. Avallain covers the entire education edtech value chain. So everything basically from production to delivery to analysis and analytics about learners. And we'll see that quite nicely on the next slide. This gives a very nice overview of what it is that Avallain do. And you'll see there in the blue, we have Avallain Author, which is our content creation tool. And we have Avallain Magnet, which is our LMS, it's our content delivery tool. All the steps that you need in between, from the creation to the delivery to the learning experience, all of that is covered by Avallain. I would point out right down there at the bottom, you may need to see something called Teachermatic. That is a relatively new product in our stable, and that is an AI teacher toolbox. We won't be talking about that today, but I just wanted to briefly highlight that to you. So, getting into, if you like, the meat of today's webinar. What is it when we talk about a seamlessly integrated ecosystem, and why does that matter? So Avallain's approach to this is that we have a fully functioning, seamlessly integrated content creation tool, which I mentioned earlier, Author, and which we'll see in a moment, and Magnet, which is the learning management system, which will be the one that the learners and teachers and so on will be the ones using. And these two systems work together in a very, very intuitive and effective way. Um, and why that's important will be will become clearer as we go through the webinar. So within that, we have some significant AI-powered content creation tools that allow you to create content, but do it in a way in which ensures that it is high quality content and the type of content that you want to create and deliver ultimately to your learners. We have a very interesting structure tool, which allows you to take a relatively complex process like publishing multiple courses and ones with differences and localizations and so on, something that's relatively complex to administer, but it does it in a very, very user-friendly and intuitive way. And my colleague Dave will be showing a little bit of that later on. You'll also see how we can have some, if you like, instant publishing, the ability to make a change and have it available for the learners instantaneously. But why does that matter now more than before? Well, the reason that matters is because one of the promises of AI when it comes to content creation is that we should be able to generate more, we should be able to generate faster, we should be able to do more adaptations, more localizations. This is what we've been hearing about over the last 3 years. But if you reflect on that, some things need to be in place in order to make that promise a reality because more content means more updates. So, how are you going to handle all those updates downstream? And more updates can mean a lot more complexity, particularly if the systems in which you're using are disconnected from each other. And we're going to talk a little bit about that over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. Behind all of this and sort of underpinning it is something called Avallain Intelligence. And what is Avallain Intelligence? It's our framework for the responsible integration of AI in education with ethics and safety, and indeed innovation at the core of everything what we do. It's a very much a well thought out and well considered approach for something which is extremely important, which is how should AI be used in the sphere of education. As I say, today is the first webinar of many. We'll be coming back to that theme, no doubt, as the months progress. So, without any further ado, I am going to kill the slides and go to show you the system live, and we're going to see Avallain Author. So, I hope that screen is visible to you now in Avallain Author. Great. So what you see here is a learning object that we have created earlier, a learning object, an exercise essentially. And the very first thing I'm going to do is come over here and click on this preview button. I'll click on the preview button and immediately we're going to see what this will look like to a learner. So here we see a nice drag and drop exercise that's been created, and you may be able to answer this if you were listening in at the start. So here we have Stephen, here we have Dave, and here we have Giada. And I check my answers and I can see that I'm getting 3 out of 3. So what I'm doing here, even though I'm in a content creation tool, I'm immediately able to see what that learner experience is like. And I'm immediately able to kind of pick up on some changes or adjustments that we might want to make. So I'm going to close and come out of that. And you'll see here the various kind of elements that go behind the scenes in order to create that nice interactive exercise that we saw. The rubric, the content, the supplements, which is the image that you saw there at the edge of the screen. There was no attachments in that learning object, but if there was, they would be visible here. But if I look at if you like, the editor here in the contents stream, you see what's called the syntax, which is the way in which the instructions, the text instruction is sent to the editor in order to generate the activity that you saw. And I've spotted something in that activity that I'd like to change, and that is a spelling of Stephen. So that's maybe something quite small. but I would like to change that from PHEAN to PHEN. And I simply just need to go in, make that adjustment, click again on preview, and here we'll see that small adjustment has been made. And straight away you can see that the spelling has been corrected, and I'm able to make that adjustment. And what I showed you there, of course, is a pretty minor change, but these things can actually be quite complex for a lot of people who are involved in content creation and delivery, whether in the field of publishing, whether it's an institution or a school who are trying to deliver learning to their learners. What you can also see here, and I won't show it right now, is maybe differences in terms of layout and what would things look like if I move this a little bit and that a little bit. And again, you have a very powerful tool here that allows you to very quickly visualize what those changes will be. So what you see here is a way in which the content, in a sense, can be created manually. But of course, as referencing the title of this webinar, we are in the age of AI, and there are two ways in which you can use artificial intelligence to create your content. And I'm going to show them to you now. Effectively, there's two ways. You can use something called Gen AI or Mosaic. Gen AI is something that you use in order to create new content, and Mosaic is something that you can use in order to take existing content that you want to put into a digital and interactive format. Gen AI, we don't have the time to look at today, but absolutely will be the subject of a further webinar. But what you see essentially is the ability to add some prompting, which will then create exercises for you based on that prompting. Mosaic, as I say, is the other approach. That's when you have some existing content that you want to turn into online digital interactive content. So if you're a publisher, you might have a backlist title that you may want that is a good title, but you may want to bring it into a more modern age and add interactivity to it. Or maybe if you're coming from an institution, I'm sure you've have teachers who have over the years created lots of very good material for themselves, which you then have in PDF format, but now you'd like to be able to deliver this as an interactive exercise. So I'm going to show you an example of how this works. We have a sample PDF, which is about anatomy. And I'm going to click here on page 2. And this is a PDF. There's nothing interactive going on this. It's essentially just a flat PDF. And with Mosaic, all I need to do to turn this into an interactive activity is just grab and highlight the part of that PDF that I'd like to be made into an activity. If you go over here, you can see that Mosaic has also figured out that there's an image on the screen, and it's asking me if I'd like to, in that PDF, it's asking me if I'd like that image of the PDF to be used in the learning object. So that is something I do want to, so I'll tick that little box. I could also tell Mosaic what type of activity it is. I could leave it to Mosaic to figure it out by itself. Because this is a gap fill, I'm going to tell it because there's a lot of different types of gap fill activities. And I'm going to tell it actually this one should be a gap fill drop down. Get out the information and I'm going to click on create, and that will start creating the activity in the background. And I could have grabbed multiple sections of the book, but because of the time constraints, I'm just going to do one for now. In case you're wondering, the AI engine behind this, it does not train any models. There's no training of the AI going on here in the background. The AI is only able to read what's in front of it for the purpose of generating this activity, but there's no training, as I say, going on, which is very important when you consider, for example, intellectual property considerations. So let me click on this activity. I'm going to go into preview and we'll have a look at what it is. Here it is in desktop. Let's have a look at it, see how it renders on a tablet. And I can scroll down here, and that exercise that previously only existed as a flat PDF is now an interactive drop down. I'm just going to get some random examples in here. I can see it's got 2 out of 4. So you can see it was also able to make some guesses about what the correct answers were as well. So it's not just that it's able to transform the activity, it can also figure out what the answers are. Of course, there would need to be some editorial oversight afterwards to look at this and ensure that the answers are correct. But that, even by itself, is an enormous time saver for anyone who's involved in creating content. And as I say, you can have a look and easily move around to see what these activities are going to look like on a tablet or a phone or a desktop. And of course, just like before, where you saw the ability to edit the text, that also exists here. We've created that activity, but I can also go in here and make some manual edits to the text that was pulled out from that PDF. And again, that's quite important if you are considering, for example, older material that you have, and maybe you want to make some changes, some words that were previously used are not the words that you use now with style guides, or just some knowledge has been updated in the meantime. It's a very, very effective way of creating or like recreating activities and making adjustments to it. So that's how it works for one individual learning object. But you might be curious, might be thinking, well, that's all fine for if I'm just doing one exercise, but there's a lot more going on than that. At this point, I'm going to pass over to Dave Moxon, who's going to tell you about the structure tools and some other features that allow you to publish in much more scale. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. So Mosaic is a very impressive tool, and every time I see it, I'm impressed. And Gen AI 2 is also a very impressive tool. And as Stephen said, we're going to have another webinar focusing on both of those AI tools. So here you can see on my screen a collection of LOs or learning objects. And we have here, it looks like an ebook. These are these could all potentially be separate courses. You can have multiple activities in a single LO. Stephen was showing just one activity, but you can have all sorts of activities in the same LO. You could have up to, I think it's 100, although perhaps he wouldn't recommend that, but you could actually build a whole course in just one LO. But what Author is very unique in is the fact that you can build courses out of these multiple courses, if you like. You use these separate LOs to create a course, and you do that in the structure tool. So I'm going to change the page. I'm going to click on structures, and here we see a couple of structures. So what is a structure? A structure is effectively what the student is going to see in Magnet, in the LMS. And if I click on one of these structures, we see a very simple interface. If I click on the title, we have one section in this very simple structure, and we'll see how we can make that a little bit more complex. And then we have our learning objects that we have just left on the work packages page that we can use to populate our structure. So if I go to the other one, we have a slightly fuller one here, and you can see you've got really a bird's eye view of what the course looks like. And so without having to go into the separate LOs, you can see at a glance that, the different sections. And within each of those sections, you have learning objects that you've brought from different work packages. So let me go back to that first one, and let me see how I can add another unit. So I click on the title, and let's say I want to have unit 2. I just call it unit 2, and I can carry on, and I can create submodules if I want. So I could just say part A, and I click that, and I can move that in if I want, or I can move things out. You can make lots of subdirectories to create your structure. And then once I've done that, I can go to my work packages. I select the work package where I've created my content. So let's say it's this one here, and I can simply pull over LO to that particular unit. And then I've got part A, and maybe I want another LO in this section. So another advantage of this structure system is that you're able to reuse content that you've created in the work packages area. So maybe one of your courses is overlaps with another course, and maybe some of the content you created could be used in both of your courses. You simply go to the structure, build two structures, and then pull over that content into both of the courses. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to build a new LO and copy all the pages over. No, you just simply pull in the learning objects into your new structure and you're away. So it's a really clever tool, and it's not a tool that you'll find in, I think, in any of the authoring tools that I'm aware of anyway, where most of the tools you're just building a course in one object, as it were. These are using multiple objects to create your structure. So once you've done that, you're going to click on the Publish button, and there you can select if you want to publish the content, i.e. the learning objects, or if you just want to publish the structure, because maybe I just changed the order. Maybe I didn't want Unit 1 to go after Unit 2, and so I can just change the structure. I don't have to republish the content. I just republish the structure. And then I'll be able to see in the LMS my course. So I'm not going to publish now. I'm just going to go straight over to the course, to the LMS. And here we have our courses. And this is the course that Stephen was looking at. And this is a direct reflection of what we have in Author. And if I click that, we'll see exactly the same LO. And I can complete it in exactly the same way. We don't have time to go into everything on Magnet today, but if I click on the mark book, I can see the students who have completed that particular learning object. I can open up the name. I can see their scores. I can review the answers they put by clicking on the review button. And on top of that, I'm able to see what particular strengths or particular aspects or skills, we call them, the student is doing well in. So because you can actually tag each of those learning objects in Author, and they come straight over into Magnet, and it's reflected in the gradebook. So if you've got a language course, you can have certain learning objects focusing on speaking, others on grammar, and that will be reflected in the gradebook. So I think the main thing that I want to say is that the Magnet and Author work extremely well and extremely closely together. And because they're so integrated, it does make publishing so much easier. It makes updating so much easier. And it also makes creating different courses using the same content much easier. And on top of that, we have this whole Avallain intelligence that Stephen was talking about, which is built both on Magnet and Author, which takes the ethics into concern and makes sure that the human is always, the teacher is still always involved in the creating of content and the delivery of content. And that's back to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dave. And I think it's really, really cool to see just how sort of intuitive it is to be able to replicate those courses and have, similar but courses that have important, but with subtle differences, and be able to kind of manage all of that, because that is certainly increasingly a key consideration for everyone involved in education, is the ability to make those important adjustments to learners and their learning experience. So just basically to wrap things up, so to speak, coming back to what we mentioned at the start, why does this sort of integrated workflow matter, and why does it matter in AI? Well, we know that there are clear benefits from AI, but it also brings certain challenges when we want to create more content, we want to create it quicker, or we want to update content a lot more frequently. There are issues that we need to consider to make sure that we're doing that in the right way, and doing it in the way that our learners want to get that learning. So when you think in terms of what they are the challenges, but then what is then the answers to that, and what is it that Avallain can do in terms of its integrated edtech workflow? Well, I think we see on the screen here kind of 5 key points. It could probably, if this webinar was 3 hours long, there could be 505 points here, but we've just picked out these 5 for today. And really the key benefits are this sort of faster content creation, but making sure it's still kind of good quality creation, as Dave mentioned, that human in the loop. That's what we're talking about. Using the AI to create that draft, and then the editor can apply their skills to hone it. The sort of integrated workflow that we have also reduces your operational complexity considerably. Being able to preview and see the learner experience is really quite fundamental. That in turn improves the collaboration within teams and the different people who are involved in making sure that the learning experience is the way you want to be. Now, we didn't get to talk in great detail or any detail at all about accessibility, but this will come up in later webinars. And there are some very important ways in which Avallain's AI tools can help improving accessibility and compliance with various requirements around accessibility, including using AI to create alt text of images and much more besides. So, as mentioned at the start, and as Dave referenced as well, a lot of this is really underpinned by our concept of having human-centered and responsible usage of AI that should allow people to have the AI do the heavy lifting, but make sure that behind it all, that there's a human ensuring that the right type of quality and experience is delivered for the learner. So that is that from me. I haven't seen the chat for the last few minutes, but I can have a look now and see if any questions have come in.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, indeed. This is the Q&A time. We still have a couple of minutes, so we always have the option to get in touch with us. So if you are ready to transform your content or you want to see the Avallain Author and Avallain Magnet in action, but actually, let me actually stop that. I can see one question coming in. So let me ask this now. Can I use your product to create a digital book? Also, does the system support other languages? Stephen, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, the answer is yes to to both. So absolutely, you can use this to create digital books, and I strongly suspect that will be something that will be featured in a later webinar. We have an entire um, product feature called the digital book experience, where students can move very nicely from their digital book into the interactive learning activity. So that's very much a yes to that, and we can certainly look at that down the line. And does the system support other languages? Yes is also the answer to that. When you go into Magnet, you have the ability to switch the profile. So that would be there for the teachers and the students. They can switch the profile and move into there's multiple. I think there's at least 5 or 6 languages supported already, and more coming on stream as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. And there is one more question that I think we can fit in is, will author only generate content only for Magnet or other LMS as well?
Yes, it can create content for other LMSs. It can operate as if you like, a headless authoring system. So it works really, really well together with Magnet. I think we would have seen some of the examples today, but it absolutely is possible to export it and have it delivered through another learning management system.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. That's great that we got these two questions. And in case you have more, I was just sharing these slides. So we would be happy to hear from you directly. You can contact us either by scanning the QR code that you can see on the slide, or I'm also dropping a link in the chat. And you just need to complete this quick form, and a member of the team will get in touch. It could be Stephen directly, that you know already. And you can just book a personalized demo to see Avallain Author and Avallain Magnet in action, so you can see how we can support your unique goals. And also, as we said at the beginning, this is a monthly webinar series, so we're very happy to invite you to the next webinar in the series, which is going to be on Wednesday, 15th of July. And this webinar is going to be a deep dive on Avallain Magnet, our AI-integrated LMS platform that we showcased just before. So the title is Learning Outcomes That Matter, Delivering Impactful Teaching and Learning with Avallain Magnet. So the timing is going to be the same as today. I'm just going to drop again another link in the chat, which is the link that you can use to register your space for this webinar in July. But don't worry, because all the information, like including the link that I sent before and this one, together with the recording, will be part of the email that we're sending next week. So you'll have everything in the same place. and you can get back to us in case you have any other questions that come up. And I think with that, we can make a end to today's session. Thank you very much once again for joining us all today. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Stephen, for your very useful insights and showcasing how Author and Magnet work seamlessly together. And we hope to see you again very soon, hopefully in the next session. So have a great day or afternoon, wherever you are.
Avallain, digital education solved.